When we talk about loyalty, Jimbe is kind of a contradiction, but still a very formidable adversary. Some may even say underrated. Just popping in to say that I didn't know that this video was going to be uploaded on my birthday. And this is not me begging for you to say happy birthday to me. All I'm asking simply is for you to like and subscribe, whether you're watching this on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Please just like and follow me. Go check out my channel. If you are watching this on social media, Prince Shanghai, thank you and happy birthday to me. And enjoy this Jimbe video. Hello motherfuckers, welcome back to my motherfucking channel. Today we are continuing in my series of ranking the warlords. And today, this week, is all about Jimbe, the Fishaman, the first son of the sea. Jimbe, we love to see him. Now we've already done Buggy, Boa, Law, even Hanafuda, Crocodile, Mihawk. We've done a lot of these warlords so far, and we're getting through them one at a time. And it's all about Jimbe this week, baby. So make sure you like and subscribe. Let's get into this Jimbe video, okay? First, let's start with Jimbe's basic stats. Standing at 301 centimeters or 9 feet and 11 inches tall. Currently 46 years old, born April 2nd, with a bounty of 1,100,000,000 berries, and is currently the helmsman of the Straw Hat Pirates. And now let's get into Jimbe's basic timeline in the story of One Piece. Born 46 years ago in the Ryugu Kingdom, in an orphanage that later became the Fishman District, training at the Fishman Karate Dojo, and as a child achieved his black belt. And love that for Jimbe. He was always very, like I said at the beginning of this video, very strong adversary. But that's all we know of his childhood as of now. And around 15 years before the current storyline in One Piece, he was a part of the Neptune army, being a very strong hype man for Fishmen and Fishman Island as a whole. And he doesn't take any bullshit, and that includes the people of his own kind, other fishermen. And in his very young adult years around this time, Fisher Tiger returns to Fishman Island, and after finding out Fisher Tiger actually attacked Marijois, freeing a bunch of slaves, Jimbe resigns from the Neptune army and joins the Sun Pirates. This ultimately changes Jimbe because later on we see him beating up Marines, really violently, as the Fishmen travel around the world. Fisher Tiger goes on to teach Jimbe not to stoop to the levels of the humans, reminding him that their goal is to free the oppressed. And a few years later, the Sun Pirates visit a random island, and here was Koala, and the people of this island ask the fishmen to take her back to her home, where she belongs. And as they arrive to her home, they are ambushed by Marines led by Strawberry, and Fisher Tiger actually gets very injured during this whole debacle, leading him to later on telling his crew that no matter what he does or how hard he tries, he still hates humans, and telling them about his past as a slave, rejecting a blood infusion from the humans, and he dies soon after this. And after Fisher Tiger dies and Arlong is captured, Jimbe becomes the pirate captain of the Sun Pirates. They go on to do more piratey things, but still not killing anybody, living in Fisher Tiger's dream, okay? His will, basically. And his bounty rose to 250 million berries, and around this time, he was invited to be a part of the warlords. This was huge. This was huge for Fishman Island. It was huge. Knowing this would strengthen the relationship between the fishmen and the humans, and this whole deal that went down of Jimbe joining the warlords actually gets Arlong freed. But this sends both of them even more farther apart because Arlong feels as if Jimbe is selling out, and they go on to have a squabble, and Jimbe wins, and they both go their separate ways. And soon after this, on Fishaman Island, a world noble appears. And a few former slaves go on to try to kill this world noble, ultimately being stopped by Orihime, who actually was later threatened by this world noble, and she ends up setting it all good, like everything's good for now. And she ends up going to the surface to politic with the world nobles, world government, whatever. And soon after her return, madness ensues on Fishaman Island. The signatures are ablaze, and Orihime ends up getting shot and dying. And Horty Jones blames this on a human, but Jimbe tells him not to say anything because he still is trying to keep not only Fisher Tiger's dream alive at this point, but also Orihime's dream of being real close-knit with the world government. And 2 years before the start of the series, Jimbe actually tries to stop a fight between Ace and Whitebeard, who protected Fishman Island at the time. And Ace and Jimbe go on to strengthen their relationship and grow together as friends. This is where Jimbe finds out actually about Luffy and Arlong's defeat. And soon after this, Ace is captured and Jimbe refuses to fight the Whitebeard pirates. He doesn't want to fight alongside his other warlord buddies. So he is also sent to Impel Down with Ace. They were in the same cell. Ace goes on to tell him great stories about Luffy, really hyping this interaction up between Luffy and Jimbe. But soon after this, Ace is actually taken to Marineford. And Jimbe ends up meeting Luffy soon after this, trying to break out Ace, and they all escape the prison in a huge riot, making their way to Marineford. And arriving at Marineford, Jimbe reassures Luffy that saving Ace is the #1 priority. And he goes on to save all the devil fruit users that fell into the sea during their entrance, shouting to Sengoku that he will be resigning as a warlord. This was an aura moment for me because it's just like, it was kind of just like when the Straw Hats in Eni's lobby shooting down the flag, like you are telling the world government you are going against what they have to say. Love that for Jimbe. And throughout the war, he is seen fighting a lot of marine fodder and Moria and stuff. And we get a lot of reactions from him as he is watching the actions of Marineford play out. And later on in the war, Luffy actually asks Jimbe to throw him where Ace is being held at. And this scene is so iconic. Not only for Luffy, of course, that is such an iconic scene. Everybody loves that scene. But it's really Jimbe that gets him up there. I love seeing that. It was really one of the first times we see Jimbe really underwater in action. I love to see it. And it's later seen helping Luffy and Ace try to escape the battlefield. But we all know, unfortunately, Ace doesn't make it. And Jimbe actually ends up blocking Akainu's punch from hitting Luffy and Ace's dead body. Once again, aura from Jimbe building this relationship between him and Luffy. And Marco ends up telling Jimbe to run, taking Luffy with him and running. But Akainu catches up with Jimbe and hits Jimbe so crazily as Jimbe is trying to protect Luffy in this moment. Once again, love to see this for Jimbe and Luffy. The relationship is just growing stronger and stronger. But suddenly, Crocodile sends a sand attack towards Akainu, and this sends Jimbe and Luffy up into the air, and they are caught by Buggy. And Buggy gives Jimbe and Luffy to Law, and they end up escaping in bad shape. But they are treated by Law and crew, and later Jimbe wakes up thanking Law. And 2 weeks after the war, as Luffy is waking up, he goes on a rampage, but is stopped by Jimbe. And this brings Jimbe to tears, asserting dominance over Luffy in a way, reminding him, yes, you can be sad over Ace, but remember, you haven't lost everything. And this is one of the reasons that I respect Jimbe so much. He's really the one that got Luffy out of that funk, you know what I'm saying? And it's very respectable, you know, this grown man, you know, he doesn't owe Luffy nothing, although him and Whitebeard and Ace were really good and friends and really close. He still doesn't owe Luffy nothing, but he really really felt for this situation, and I respect, I do. And soon after this, we see Jimbe and Luffy and company going back to Marineford to ring the Ox Bell. And after this, they go their separate ways, with Jimbe going back to Fisherman Island, awaiting Luffy's arrival. And at some point during the time skip, this is where Jimbe comes into contact with Big Mom and decides to create a sort of alliance. And this is where Big Mom puts Fisherman Island under her belt, as Jimbe is working under her as a subordinate of the Big Mom pirates. And later we see Jimbe residing in the sea forest of Fisherman Island, still waiting for Luffy, and Luffy eventually ends up coming to Fisherman Island, and he gives Luffy a rundown of the recent history of Fisherman Island. And after the flashback, Luffy wants to go fight Horty Jones, who is currently reigning terror over Fisherman Island. But Jimbe says that would be a bad idea, because to see a fishman and a human fighting would cause more separation between humans and fishmen, and says that Luffy would have to fight him if this is what he wanted to do. So the two go on to spar for a bit, being stopped by Robin, telling them that friends should not fight. And Jimbe makes his way over to Gynocord Plaza to save the king, allowing himself to be captured. It's all part of the plan that they have going on here on Fisherman Island. Finding out that it was actually Horty Jones that killed Orihime, and they begin to fight. And during this fight, we see him fighting a bunch of Horty's crew, and even roundhouse kicking Watatsumi. Sanji and Jimbe end up teaming up to defeat him. And after Luffy eventually beats Horty Jones, Luffy is left battered and loses a bunch of blood, where Jimbe offers to give him a blood transfusion. And this is a huge moment, not only for the Fisherman Island arc and Luffy and Jimbe's relationship, but humans and fishmen. That relationship needs more progress, and this was huge for that. All the fishermen, people seeing how much Luffy helped, and Jimbe offering his blood and Luffy accepting it. It's big. And Luffy offers Jimbe to join his crew, but Jimbe refuses, saying that he has other business, unfinished business to take care of, and after that unfinished business, he will join. And during the celebration of the Fisherman Island arc, Jimbe goes on to tell the Straw Hats about the world and how everything has changed in the last 2 years. And he is seen speaking to Neptune about being scared of what Big Mom will do to Fisherman Island if he leaves her crew. But Luffy steps up and says, Fisherman Island is my territory. And it quite literally is. He liberated Fisherman and, well, Fisherman Island. He deserves this territory. And then Jimbe and the others from Fisherman Island bid their farewells to the Straw Hat crew, and they once again go their separate ways. And during the events of Dressrosa, Jimbe is actually seen taking Caribou up to the surface, leaving him in the hands of Commodore Yarushiji. And soon after this, Jimbe goes on a solo adventure, helping a little sea kitten get back to its home. And after seeing their home in ruins and finding out who the culprits were, it was a bunch of sea monsters and Watatsumi. And after saving the village from Watatsumi and the sea monsters, they actually give Jimbe a poneglyph, where he leaves the village in peace, making his way to Big Mom's island. But before arriving to Whole Cake, he actually links up with his crew and informs them that he plans on leaving the Sun Pirates to join the Straw Hats. And he finally arrives to Whole Cake and ends up giving her that poneglyph that we just were talking about, and later is seen stopping her hunger pangs, and he needs to talk to Big Mom about something big, and it's him leaving the crew. Saying he must spin the wheel of consequence, he ends up changing his mind, but not really. He ends up telling his crew that he will rebel with Luffy against Big Mom. And 2 days later, he gets to the library where Luffy and Nami are being held freeing them and explaining his current situation. And later he links up with Carrot and Chopper, helping freeing Brook from Big Mom, telling everybody what is actually happening at this wedding, and later link back up with Luffy and now Sanji, suggesting that they start an alliance with Capone Beji to take down Big Mom. And as that battle begins to enrage, Pedro and Jimbe actually release a bunch of copies of Luffy, where then they end up breaking Mother Caramel's picture, and Jimbe tells Big Mom that he's the one that told Luffy this, and this enrages Big Mom even more, doing the iconic scene of life or death. And it doesn't work on Jimbe because he's simply just not scared of Big Mom. And this pisses her off even more, leaving Jimbe to evade her attacks and going on to fight some of the Big Mom pirates. But he ends up escaping the castle, making his way to the northwest of Whole Cake Island. But soon the group makes it all the way back to the Thousand Sunny. But Big Mom is still in hot pursuit, and they end up using a coup de burst to get away from Big Mom, but this does not stop her. She is very persistent. She wants this wedding cake. She wants Luffy's head. She's pissed. And as the chase continues, thanks to Jimbe's beautiful skills as a helmsman, he blocks and evades the waves that are created by Big Mom while she is still chasing them as they are making their way to Cacao Island. And eventually she catches up and actually ends up on the Sunny, attacking Jimbe, sending him into the ocean with Napoleon. Soon returns, hitting her with a Baccarat technique, sending her off the Sunny. This moment right here, this was a standout moment for Jimbe. I'm gonna be real, Jimbe doesn't really have too many standout moments, but this one right here it solidified him for me as a formidable opponent. Anybody that can attack a character like Big Mom or Kaidou, I instantly gain more respect for them, and it was beautifully done. But they soon link up with Sanji and Pudding, sending Big Mom off in another direction with the fire tank pirates who have the wedding cake that she desperately wants so bad. And they end up making it to Cacao Island, rescuing Sanji and Luffy, and they are making their way outside of Totoland. And soon after this, Jimbe is seen diving into the water of Totoland and is helping fend off the Big Mom pirates with the rest of the Sun pirates so that the Thousand Sunny and the crew can escape. And this is where we get that iconic scene of Luffy saying, "I'll meet you in Wano," or something like that. It's something along those lines. But it's iconic and it stands out. It's a moment for sure. And soon after this, Jimbe and the rest of the Sun Pirates end up escaping and making their way down to the water. And this is where the rest of the Sun Pirates tell Jimbe to basically go do his big one. Okay, go join the Straw Hats, do what you want to do. And it's just like, this is a moment right here where I'm just like, I don't understand. But we'll talk about it more at the end of the video. Let's just keep going. Now we're on Wano. We're jumping ahead to the day of the Fire Festival. This is where Jimbe reunites with the Straw Hats, and it's off the coast of Onigashima. A moment here, you know, the crew together at last, the whole crew, mind you. And this is the first time, well, Jimbe just joined the crew, so the crew has already been together, but like, it's a moment, okay? Ready for the raid on Onigashima. And when they arrive to Onigashima, Jimbe is seen hiding the Sunny, and it makes sense because he's the helmsman. And him and Robin go on to infiltrate the performance floor, where they actually throw Big Mom off of the performance floor. W's. I'm saying, if anyone can injure an Emperor of the Sea, not even injure, just like attack them without like anything behind it, like, I don't give a fuck like that. I like that. Okay, so this is Jimbe and Robin. But Jimbe goes on to fight a bunch of fodder here, but later is seen escorting Luffy to the rooftop, fighting fodder along the way. But Jimbe stays behind to keep the fodder at bay, and is soon confronted by Who's Who. And they begin to spar, and then Who's Who goes on to spill about his past and the gum gum fruit. This is where we learn about the gum gum fruit and stuff, the lore behind it. And not all of the lore, but this was the biggest drop of the gum gum fruit that we've had in a very long time. So this moment was a standout moment, and the fact that it was Jimbe that heard about this, W. And Jimbe has a good fight on his hands. This was a great fight to watch personally. Who's Who put up a good fight, but Jimbe goes on to break his wrist, stepping on his tail, finishing him off, and he wins the fight. Like I said, this fight was fun. It was a great watch, okay? And as someone who like kind of says that Jimbe really doesn't have big moments, this was one of those moments. Not to say Who's Who is like the deciding factor of the Wano raid, but he was still a strong opponent, and it's great to watch. And throughout the rest of the raid, Jimbe is seen helping his allies, and W Jimbe, it makes sense. It's Jimbe, he's a good guy. But MVP moment from not only Jimbe, but Raizo. Okay, Raizo was one of those characters where I was just like, what the fuck? I couldn't get behind Raizo. I didn't see him do anything crazy, most like the rest of the scabbards, I'm not gonna lie. But like Raizo in particular, I hated him, to be honest. Not hated him, just a strong dislike, okay? But this pair goes on to do one of the craziest things, I think, in my opinion. It's just like, wow. Raizo pulls out a scroll and releases a bunch of water that he captured back on Zunesha when Zunesha was flooding its back. Jimbe goes on to waterbend all this water. It was a lot of fucking water. And it puts out all the fires throughout all the floors in the Onigashima castle. It was peak. I'm sorry, we have to give it to these two for who they are. I'm sorry, Jimbe. I'm sorry, Raizo. But just like the moments weren't there, and then they give us this. I'm just like, oh my god. I was rooting for my boys at this point now. And as the raid ends and the people decide to throw a banquet, Jimbe is the only one that shows up to this banquet, while the rest of the Straw Hats are, you know, in the city going crazy, having a good party or whatever. But this really just shows Jimbe's character. You know, he's very serious. He's very serious about what he wants to do and just things like this. I don't know why, but that sticks out to me when it comes to Jimbe's character. Him being on time, ready, while the others are just doing what they're doing. And a few days later, the crew sets sail, ending the Wano arc, and Jimbe becoming a full-fledged member of the Straw Hat Pirates as the helmsman. And as they approach Egghead, they are talking about the going-ons outside of Wano, what happened outside of Wano while they were there. And not too long after this, Jimbe goes after Luffy, who was going after Chopper, who flew off the ship as they were watching Bonnie drowned in the sea. That was a moment, okay? I'm not gonna lie, because now Jimbe is like this character, okay? This is what he does, okay? If one of the devil fruit users fall into the sea, Jimbe needs to be the one that goes and gets them. You know, he's a fishman. It makes sense. But Jimbe goes on to save all of them, of course, making their way to a cave on the outskirts of Wano, like the sewer system, and they end up on the island where they explore just a little bit while the other Straw Hats are finding their way to the island as well. Having run-ins with the Pacifista, Atlas, and even Stella, the real Vegapunk. And that's really it for Jimbe. He doesn't do anything crazy. I mean, he does have the moment where he goes and gets Zoro, and he attacks Lucci, okay? That shit's crazy. That's honestly crazy. I will give him that. But for the most part, he's seen, you know, learning the knowledge that everybody else is learning and stuff like that. Nothing crazy from Jimbe on Egghead for the rest of Egghead, okay? They escape, making their way to Elbaf. And they're having a banquet on the Giant's ship. And after the banquet they have, everyone passes out, and the OG Straw Hats are missing, leaving Jimbe, Frankie, Brooke, Robin on the Great Eric, continuing on their way to Elbaf. And when they arrive to Elbaf, the Giants go on to tell the these Straw Hats, the newer generation of Straw Hats, let's call them that since we're calling the other ones OG, the Giants go on to explain their current situation in the recent history of elbaf. And the new gen goes on to explore a little bit of elbaf, and they eventually link back up with the OG Straw Hat. And this is where they go and see Robin and Saul reunite, which it's not a moment for Jimbe, but it is a moment for the whole crew to see this happen. We all know, I don't know if Jimbe knows all the history. He probably does at this point between Saul and Robin, so it's a moment. And the crew ends up going their separate ways to explore more of elbaf. And at this point, the Giants are enamored by Jimbe because they've never seen a Fishaman. And Jimbe goes on to tell them about his culture and Fishaman Island. I like this right here. Jimbe is so happy. He's a good fishman. He loves being a fishman. Okay, I love that for Jimbe, because shout out to the fishermen. We're not racist here. Okay. And later, Jimbe's group goes on to arrive to the school, which was being attacked. He then uses Umi, Gummo, and Panzio, throwing water to put out the fires, saving the children. This is a moment. This is a moment for Jimbe. I love seeing this, okay? But I want more. I need more. But then Gunko comes and puts down Jimbe's entire group, okay? And at this point, when I was writing this, that was it for Jimbe. We haven't seen much. But as of recent, what is happening with Jimbe, he is being discriminated against by one of the Holy Knights, and that's killing him. But Sanji goes off to behead, killing him, handing Jimbe his head. Hello? That is a moment. Love to see it. W Jimbe and his culture, but really W Sanji. Now that is the last we've seen of Jimbe as of now, 1179. That is where the manga is currently. And before I give my ranking and my predictions for Jimbe, I want to give my little thoughts on Jimbe. Okay? I love Jimbe. I really do. And I definitely think that the Straw Hats need a fishman, but I don't think Jimbe should be on the Straw Hats crew. I'm just saying. He could have went two ways, okay? The first way could have been staying the captain of the Sun Pirates and really holding it down in Fishaman Island, because Fishaman Island is a big target, not only by the government, but now you did this with Big Mom and stuff, and you guys are just leaving it unattended. And I don't think that there's anyone on Fishaman Island that can really give somebody a good fight if it comes down to it. But Jimbe could. Jimbe is a strong, once again, formidable opponent, and I'm not taking that away from him whatsoever. I just think he belonged somewhere else. Now, the second way he could have went was to join the Revolutionary Army. I could see this totally being a possibility. The revolutionaries are trying to free the people of the One Piece planet little by little, okay? Jimbe is a part of a culture that needs freeing, that needs more respect on the surface level. Yes, they are invited to the reveries and stuff, but still, people treat fishermen like shit. They do. Okay, and I feel like he would fit so perfectly with Dragon and Ivankov and Kuma when he was a part of the Revolutionary Army. He basically dropped all his friends to sail around with people that are half his age. Hello? And this is why at the beginning of the video I called Jimbe a contradiction, because it's just like, you show so much loyalty to Luffy. Where is this loyalty to your people? Okay, and once again, not to shit on him, because I think Jimbe is very skilled at what he does. I just don't think he should be on the Straw Hats. But I'm done shitting on Jimbe. I really am, okay? Let's get into some Jimbe predictions. Like I said, he is formidable, and we will see Jimbe go on to fight more crazy. I'm hoping, that's what I'm hoping for, to fight more in crazy, villains at this point, but like, I also think that he will unlock Conqueror's Haki, because he needs it.
Okay, to be compared to Sanji, your bounty is higher than Sanji's. I'm pretty sure, right? Yeah, your bounty is higher than Sanji's, on par with Zoro's, and you're on Luffy's crew. You need to be strong. You got to be. And he is strong, but is he strong enough to fight Holy Knights? You know what I'm saying? But eventually, I kind of see what I was just saying happening. Jimbe leaves the Straw Hats. This is one of my biggest predictions. I think Jimbe will, and he should, leave the Straw Hats. They need a different helmsman. I'm sorry. They do. They just do. Like that. Jimbe's not... I'm gonna sound bad, but I just don't think he fits the aesthetic of the Straw Hats. Not that the Straw Hats fucking need an aesthetic, or that they even have one, okay? Because you have Big Frankie here, and everybody else is just small, petite. Not to shit on the big characters. I'm a big guy myself. I just don't think they need Jimbe. I don't. And now for my ranking for Jimbe, I'm going to give Jimbe a solid B. I wrote down that he didn't really move the story much, but that's a lie. He saved Luffy on, you know, Marineford and stuff like that, but I need to see more from Jimbe. If Jimbe is going to stay on this crew, he's going to be the helmsman, we have to respect it. I need to see more from him. I need to see why the fuck you're on the crew. And once again, I mean, I could say he saved Luffy on Marineford, of course. But I still need and want more from Jimbe. But let me know what you think. Where would you rate Jimbe as a warlord against the other warlords of the sea? And if you want to know where I would rank the warlords and their stories, a deep dive into the other warlord stories, go check out the Warlord series. I like to drop a theory video that coincides with that warlord of that week. Jimbe's will be coming out on Friday, and it's pretty good. So go check it out. But let me know what you think about Jimbe. Jimbe is definitely formidable once again, but there's just certain things about him that I can't get. It's not because he's a fisherman. Don't say that. It's not. But, you know, I don't know. It's complicated. But I guess that's it. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye, motherfuckers.